I just shot myself.
Guns. It's a hot-button issue that's plagued U.S. legislators for years. The big question is, how do we handle this controversial topic? Let's start by looking at the Second Amendment. In its fullness, the Second Amendment states, a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is a much debated amendment, and its motives have been questioned since its fruition. Perhaps the best way to explain the Second Amendment is to provide statistics about the U.S. and its harmful gun usage. As of 2012, the U.S. had 320,000 homicide deaths, with Italy as a far second with 72,000. In terms of numbers, the total number of actual civilian-to-civilian homicides in the U.S. is 9,146 per year, which is fifth behind Venezuela with 11,115, Mexico with 12,309, Colombia with 12,539, and Brazil with 34,678 deaths. One might say the U.S. still has an issue with guns, but when you look at the population of each of the 5 countries, the U.S. outnumbers these countries by quite a bit. When this is taken into account, the number of U.S. gun homicides doesn't seem that much. Another interesting fact is to look at the number of gun homicide deaths compared to guns. Out of 11,961 murders performed in the U.S. in 2014, only 248 were committed with a so-called assault rifle, while 1,567 were committed using a knife, 660 were unarmed, and the remainder of the entailed various categories of miscellaneous weapons, some of which, I might add, were unlicensed firearms. After having knowledge of these statistics, let's look at the 2 different types of gun control policy that liberals and conservatives debate over. Let's start with the pro-gun control side.
This is big. This is big because the Supreme Court had held in Heller that you do have a constitutional right to keep your gun in your house, period. But now the question is, can you walk around with it? Can you walk around with a concealed weapon? And the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals had originally ruled, yes, of course you can, yes. But then they came back, which for like the full panel of the Ninth Circuit is called en banc, and the full panel in a split decision said, forget about it. No, you can't. Enjoy it inside your living room. And that's
model
it.
For gun control.
Right? In Australia, we had guns, right? Right up until 1996. And in 1996, Australia had the biggest massacre on earth. Still hasn't been beaten. And now, after that, they banned the guns. Now, in the 10 years before Port Arthur, there was 10 massacres. Since the gun ban in 1996, there hasn't been a single massacre since. I don't know how or why this happened. Maybe it was a coincidence, right? Now, please understand that I understand that Australia and America are 2 vastly different cultures with different people, right? I get it. In Australia, we had the biggest massacre on earth, and the Australian government went, that's it, no more guns. And we all went, yeah, right then, that seems fair enough, really.
So we wanted to know, what do the Republican candidates think about gun control? Well, across the board, each candidate has expressed overwhelming support for the Second Amendment. Specifically, there is an open distrust of the government and congressional Democrats in crafting any new gun legislation. They distinctly oppose gun control on principle. But when it comes to the specifics of who can and cannot own a gun, there is actually considerable dissent among the candidates. It is broadly acknowledged that there are certain people, for example criminals and the mentally ill, who should be barred from owning guns. Chris Christie has advocated for and passed bills creating more comprehensive background checks, which include mental health records. On the other hand, Rand Paul and Ted Cruz once threatened to filibuster a similar federal bill and clarify that guns should only be available to responsible, law-abiding citizens.
Hitler took the guns, Stalin took the guns, Mao took the guns, Fidel Castro took the guns, Hugo Chavez took the guns, and I'm here to tell you, 1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms. Doesn't matter how many lemmings you get out there on the street begging for them to have their guns taken. We will not relinquish them. Do you understand?
And bear arms. We believe that every law-abiding citizen in the United States should be able to purchase a firearm for self-defense or hunting purposes. It is a right given to us by this great nation's founding fathers, and it is a right we deserve to have as American citizens, and it needs to stay that way. The Second Amendment states that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. With this phrasing, the Second Amendment creates an individual right for citizens. This phrasing also means that it is unconstitutional for any legislators to prohibit the possession of firearms. Also, the Second Amendment states that a well-regulated militia is to be maintained. Gun control supporters argue that this militia is the National Guard. This is totally false, as the Founding Fathers meant that the militia is to be all able-bodied men capable of bearing arms. This was clarified in 1792 when the Militia Act was passed. This act declared that the militia of the United States to include all able-bodied adult males. The Supreme Court has also gotten in on the debate. In 1990, they ruled that the National Guard is part of the United States Army and that the federal government possesses complete power over the National Guard. This ruling concluded that the Founding Fathers' definition of a militia is still as they intended. If the government were to take away or restrict the citizens of the United States' guns, they would be revoking the right to keeping a well-maintained, well-regulated militia, which would be unconstitutional.
Of course we couldn't end this video before firing off a few shots of this bad boy. This here is one of the most popular rifles out on the market right now. It's one of the most bought rifles. This here is a Ruger AR-15. Its capacity is a .223 round.